Hi, everyone. It's Vicky, and welcome back to another episode of Conversations Around the Table. I'm very excited for this episode because we're joined by one of our designers, Stormy Nesbit. Hi, Stormy.
Hi.
And we're going to be talking about all things brand, but more specifically about your personal brand. But before we dive into that, I wanted just to kind of get to know you a little bit more. So how long have you been at Ideas Collide?
It'll be a year on the 13th.
Already?
Or the 14th, yeah. I think I came on Valentine's Day, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I'll be approaching my year mark soon, which is kind of exciting. And I feel like it went by really fast.
Yeah. I feel like time just probably post-pandemic is just going 40 miles per hour.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting. And also very, very sweet on Valentine's Day, all coming together.
It's like my crush.
Yeah.
Teen crush.
And I'm curious, so you're obviously one of our designers. You work on multiple accounts. Which one specifically are you on?
I feel like I consider myself like a floater a little bit. So I feel like I've almost touched almost every account, I believe, at some capacity. But I would say some of my most notable accounts would be like Best Western, Fresh Cravings, a little bit of Weight Watchers now, Ingram, Intel. I'm about to name them all actually.
Well, that's a lot, and they're also different.
Yeah.
That's the thing; they're also different.
Yeah.
Do you like that as a designer? Do you like that sort of flexibility to like be able to do different types of work, or do you like prefer to stick to one sort of?
I think like I previously wasn't at an agency, so you're typically doing one type of thing, like you're on one team and that's all you do. I think it allows for me to like turn my brain off to one type of design type to go and to do something else and even try new things. So I think for me, it allows my creativity to kind of like explode versus be like, oh, I'm only making emails today and that's it, you know? So I like it personally. I think it gives me a little bit more balance and to explore different areas as well.
I know you did a workshop at the agency, which I'm sad that I wasn't able to attend because I swear everyone has only said the greatest things about it. They're like, I want to do that again, or I want to get like an iPad now and do Illustrator. And I'm just like, what did I miss?
Yeah, I was nervous about that because I'm like, what am I going to talk about? Like, is it work related? And I think I always kind of had been like, how do I cross over without crossing too much over, right? But, I taught people kind of like my background in illustration and how I've applied it to brands, and then showed them basically how you can draw things and have fun and don't kind of apply this pressure, just kind of like create, like, here's a picture, here's how you kind of tell that story, and then like once you kind of learn the basics, this is how you get the hang of it, and you can apply it to your own creativity. And then everybody was like messaging me like, I'm making these for my family for Christmas, and I was like, exactly, that's the thought, like, this is creative freedom, like, go with it. So yeah, it was really fun. I
love that. So how long, I guess, like now thinking back even before Ideas Collide, how long have you been maybe professionally doing design and visual art?
Yeah, so I graduated undergrad. I had to think about this. I'm like, how old am I? Okay, I graduated undergrad in 2014. Prior to that, I was designing before I actually got my degree because my brother works at Disney, and he thought that since I was an artist, he's like, I think you'd be great at this. You should try it. So I had like Adobe Creative Suite on the CD, and I had it since I was like in high school, and I was just trying out things. Didn't really know anything, didn't know design principle, but I could draw and had a creative eye. So I would say that's when my skill set kind of first started. And then when I went to schools, when it kind of applied like technicality to it and, creativity. So yeah, it's been a while, I would say. I've been doing this, at least designing, but yeah.
And what initially inspired you that this is like the avenue that you wanted to nurture and make a professional career out of?
Yeah, it didn't start at the beginning because I think we all had this idea of like a starving artist, and I was like, well, I don't want to be starving. That sounds awful. What can I do? But I was the kid that was always drawing on the walls. I was eating crayons and doing weird stuff. My family's like getting me crayon kits every, Christmas or birthday. And so like I always had that creative bone, and that's what came natural to me. But when I went to college, I decided to do kinesiology because I was also an athlete at West Virginia and then the University of Minnesota. And so I was kind of like pulled between the two and kind of trying to apply both and just didn't know how those worlds exist. But my brother was very encouraging and like, this is a field, you might not know anything about it, but this is a field, this is something you can do, it's art, right? And then from there, I learned how much design is literally in everything that we touch and see. So I was like, I guess it's just like going to school, right? So when I transferred to the University of West Virginia, that's when I actually pursued design. But prior to that, I had always kind of been in the arts and, you know, trying to kind of make the two work, just didn't have any knowledge on like what it meant to be like a graphic designer or even the term really.
So is your brother in design?
No, he's not, but he swears he's a creative. He's worked at Disney in their marketing with like ESPN when they had their ESPN branch like in Orlando. So he has some hand in like, I would say he's more like a business partner to the designers or marketing team. So he just had an eye for it and was just like, this is where you need to be. Like, this will be great for you. So,
and I love that because I think that sometimes, especially when it's nice when other people either recognize that before you do. And it does give you like this nice little boost of confidence of like, well, maybe. But also in general, like, I think it's so important and valuable not only to have a supporting team, but especially when it's obviously starting with your family. Because, you know, so many people like navigate life with not having that support system and, you know, not even knowing what they want to do even when they leave the house and vice versa. So that's really great that you have that.
Yeah, my family was definitely like, do what you want to do. Like my mom was a teacher. My parents were educators. And so like my mom's room when she was working in elementary school was next to the art teacher. And I used to be in the art teacher's room all the time. She's like, keep doing art. Like, so it was like a lot of people invested in me from a very young age. Now, did I know that was going to apply to me in the future? Had no idea. But a lot of people did invest in me, family and friends kind of like made sure to always kind of put it in front of me at some point. So yeah.
And I feel like just even the very like minimal, you know, things that I do know about you, I feel like I see that strung through a lot of the work that you do, and we'll dive into that. But it feels like that's definitely has like come with you to this next step. And so I want to talk to you more about like your personal brand, which is it called Stormy Mae? Is that how you would describe that, or?
Yeah, so my LLC is Stormy Mae Nesbit. I just picked up my name. I didn't really know what I was doing. You know, it was like, I got a brand now, so let's make it official. So I was like, I'll just go with my name. So yeah, I just went Stormy Mae. People on Instagram know me as Stormy, which is a tie between the two. But yeah, it's Stormy Mae technically. Stormy Mae Nesbit, like my full name. So yeah.
So how would you describe, you know, for those obviously who are listening who don't know your personal brand outside of work, how would you describe it to someone?
I would describe it as art that exemplifies the beauty in melanated skin. I think for me, when I was creating, I had traveled across the world, been to tons of museums, and just never really saw a lot of representation in like myself. And so I felt like I have a voice in the art community. Like if I want to see it, I can't make that responsibility of anyone else. So I chose to kind of speak that through my work. And then in tying that was also tying like women and women empowerment and things like that. And that was kind of like my base foundation. So with that came products, I guess, and how I built that brand was to express it in everyday items, home decor, you know, digital products and things like that.
Yeah, which I have to say, and this happened to me before I even knew you, but I remember being at Home Goods and seeing, you know, I'm a huge art lover. I mean, I have too many wall galleries in my home. And then I just have like an archive. I'm like, well, whenever I need to pull a new one. And I remember going through and I'm the same way. Like I love to fill my home with representation of myself. So there's a lot of Frida, there's a lot of the Mexican flag colors and so forth. And I remember looking through artwork and I'm like, oh, I love this. And then it wasn't until you know, I got to know you and I knew that you know, started following you on social and stuff. And I was like, why does that look so familiar? And then I found out your stuff is at Home Goods. Like it's in a store. That's huge. How does that feel to like, I mean, the first time, I mean, how does that process work? Creating something probably not with the intention of it being like in stores, but what does that process look like of creating something and having it available in stores for people to purchase?
Yeah, so what you see in stores like Home Goods, TJ Maxx, and those things are from my licensors. So in a sense, these buyers reached out to me saying, hey, these stores are interested in purchasing your artwork. There's kind of two ways you can do it. Either it's I produce everything, or I go through their licensing company where they'll produce everything. And so for those things, because it was so new to me, I'm like, I don't hold inventory. I'm like, what do you guys have? Right. And there's an abundance of things that they can create because that's what they do. They're just a production, basically. Mm-hmm. And so, so pretty much when they reached out to me, once I kind of sit down and talk to the team, see what they're interested in buying, seeing what kind of artwork they want me to create in the future, it's then kind of like, okay, we come into an agreement and they start to produce my stuff to the masses. I wish I had a little bit more hands-on with kind of what it is because, as you know, with stores like Home Goods, TJ Maxx, kind of a hunt and find. Mm-hmm. Can't really guarantee it's in there. There's no online links. So that's kind of like the downfall of it, is that I can't really guarantee to people like, oh, I have 16 in this store, and it's a hunt. I was all over the valley looking for my stuff when they first came out. And I'm like, is it going to be in any of these stores? And I found it at one, so that process is similar for all of them. I do have a couple of different licensors that I go through, and they each produce different products. And so that's kind of how that's handled.
Right. Because you say so there's the prints, mm-hmm. then I know I've seen you have planners mm-hmm. and calendars, phone cases. Yeah. Is that very similar to like what you just expressed for the print side of things?
Typically it's kind of, so the planners can vary. So I have items that I sell on my website personally that are not related to any licensor. They are produced by me. It's been the process that I used when I first started sharing my artwork and selling it to kind of people that followed me on Instagram. And then there's the artwork that is sent to the licensors. And typically a lot of the artwork that I'm sending to my licensors are artwork that I have already put out to the masses through my channels. They're basically extending the brand by putting it on journals that I didn't do. Or, I did have a calendar, I had a planner, and different things. So it's completely different. And some of the artwork isn't even new. Majority of it's not new. I've created it 2 to 3 years ago, but they have found kind of new resources in it. And that's kind of like the world of licensing. Right. They don't really want me to sit down and take 5 hours for artwork and, when I have artwork that I have not, shared that or has been used already or licensed elsewhere that they can reuse. So,
did you have any sort of knowledge or experience? Well, one, with working with other, partners and collaborators, but in general, even kicking off your own personal brand, mm-hmm. was that ever something that you sat down and was like, okay, this is what I want to do. So I know I need to get a logo. I know I need to do this. I know I need that. What was that initial step in?
Yeah.
What did that look like?
That would be a no. So obviously in the world of graphic design, we're always in marketing. So I kind of just played back on what I have seen and what has been marketed to me to understand how I wanted to present my own work. With my website that I currently have used to be my graphic design portfolio. That's all it was. When it came time for me to sell items, that's when it was like, oh, I can add a shop feature to this. What that means, I don't know. I'm just going to upload stuff and kind of call it a day. So a lot of it was trial and error and just kind of learning. But I kind of always dug back to what I knew as being a designer in corporate America, right. And how you market things to people. But it was definitely, there was no right or wrong. I literally woke up one day and decided to start sharing my artwork. And I like to say, I think God was just listen, step into your work, step into the gift that I have. And that's what I did. And it was kind of once that was received by I had 500 followers. These are all people that I knew or went to school with or grew up with, and they started to share it to their friends and family, and that just kind of grew my community, which was really the people that I knew from the beginning who knew I was a creative, and they were like, what is this? What are you doing now? Oh, we love this. We've never seen this. How do we buy this? So that's how I started, and it grew from there. And like I said, everything has been trial and error, but I'd like to think that like, because it was my purpose and like my God's plan for me, like it worked out and I haven't had to struggle to be in any space or position that I'm in.
Yeah. And I think what you said too, it's really important of like, especially when it comes to building a brand of any type is that development of your community. Cause, I think, people have this idea that, once they put something out, it's going to go viral.
Yeah.
It's going to get, 300 likes. It's going to do this, going to do that. But it probably took time. And right now, like you just talked about, like you had a follower growth of like 500. Now I know you're almost next to 50,000. So that's huge to see that community that you have, the people that are interested and that support your work grow to such lengths. I mean, how long did it take for you to build that?
I had 2K at like the beginning of the year or the end of the year. And by January, I had about 40,000 followers. So it didn't take long. It was very like overnight. Like I kind of stopped celebrating having followers after a while because I was like, okay, I can't keep up with the milestones, right? And then, as the opportunities kept coming in, it was just more brand awareness for me. And so people would discover me and, kind of be like, oh my gosh, I saw your clothing line in Forever 21. Oh my gosh, I saw your stuff in this. And so it's like, it just kind of kept growing and catapulting. And like, I actually wasn't even prepared at that point, but I was thankful and like, well, this is exciting. Like I never thought about having my own brand in this way, but yeah.
Yeah, that is. I mean, and also just quickly, how do you go about in balancing, or is there a balance? Or is it just more effortless of having a personal brand or, something that you do on the side and also having like a full-time job?
Yeah, I would say thankful for COVID. I know a lot of people aren't in some ways, but I would say for me as a business owner and brand, I wouldn't have been able to do that if I was sitting at my desk from 9 to 5. Now I started doing that. I started sharing my artwork on Instagram after I got off work because this was the first time I had a 9 to 5 that I literally got off at 5 and it was like, okay, I leave my work at work and I'm home. So it allowed me to create and kind of build that foundation for my business. But what helped me maintain it was being able to be at home and take business meetings on top of working and getting my work done. So there was a balance, but also communicating with my previous employer and my managers saying like, this is what's happening in my real life right now. And they're like, well, we support it. Like, I'm on top of my work. So there was no cause for, concern, but it was hard. But because of COVID and us being at home, I kind of had a little bit more time to kind of do both. And my setup was very similar, so that helped. I know, like, I didn't like being stuck at home, but also it was a benefit to my brand.
Yeah. But like you said, it's, COVID definitely had its cons. But the pros in terms of, for, I guess, like marketing or brand awareness, I mean, people then had nothing else to do besides go online and look and of
consume.
Course and consume exactly. And I also think too, there was a huge shift, especially during COVID, of where people really began to seek and resonate with brands that aligned with who they were or who they are and align with like the things that aspire and inspire them. And so I think that definitely, all these things like came together. Yeah. And like you mentioned, you've been featured in quite a bit. And not only are you having your items in store, but you're getting a lot of great press, from BuzzFeed to Essence to Alert. I mean, I guess, like, what was that first experience to get something, like to get a feature, whether it's just a call out to you as a creator, or specifically around something that you created, like, for example, you mentioned Forever 21. What does that feel like at first? And do you ever feel like, oh, okay, I made it?
So when that stuff kind of first happening, because really for my recognition started with kind of the articles and the artwork that I was creating surrounding the protesting and putting artwork out that reflected a positive note, as positive as it could be considering the circumstances of George Floyd's death and Ahmaud Arbery's like being killed, right? As positive as it could be to show support, I started to get recognition from that and just being somebody that was, in a sense, art for activism, which I had no idea that that's what I was going to be doing. Like it just kind of came to me in that moment. And when I had that opportunity, a lot of those, newspapers and magazines were like, these people are, pushing the movement forward, and they're showing it in a beautiful way. And this is how you can support. And so that was really the coverage. In reality, when it first came, although it was a blessing, I was also very sick to my stomach. It was just a very hard time to navigate life, to be out protesting, to trying to do artwork, to also maintain my job while everyone around me is kind of existing, where I'm like, is anybody concerned about what's going on? And I was sick. I was in my bed. I had a fever pretty much. And then I'm like, do I have COVID? Like, it was honestly chaos. So I didn't really receive that stuff automatically because it was just a lot of information and a lot of pressure and just overwhelming emotions about what was going on in the world, of course. And, now looking back on it, I'm like, wow, I had a lot of opportunities and things that were, publicized and, articles written that I just, in those moments, I wasn't even able to really kind of receive them or kind of, I don't know, accept them as a positive thing. It was more so like, I really shouldn't even be written about this, to be honest with you. Like now when they write stuff, it's completely different, right? It's like, oh, you did this with this and, so forth. But then it just didn't feel, I wasn't happy about it because at the end of the day, I shouldn't have been written up for that, right? I should be written up for my artwork, just, being in a gallery or something. I don't know. But it all in all, I was still thankful because it did put a spotlight on my work, and it allowed brands to see what I was presenting, and I didn't have to change who I was in order to be featured or seen anywhere. So like at times, I would say I typically am more like humble with it. I kind of just like, it's okay. Like, my friends will be like my friends, the friends are calling and be like, you live with her? And I'm like, stop saying that. Like, I'm a normal person. Like, I have a dog. Like, I'm chilling at home. Like, I don't do anything. Like, so I think, yes, although it's like I've had some really awesome moments, I'm always thankful. And I think I'm kind of always kind of surprised too at like, wow, I've really been in these spaces that didn't really seem achievable, like, or wasn't something that was even on my radar, and it's kind of come in my lap, or something that's been full circle. And so I'm super thankful for the opportunities because it's really allowed me to obviously grow my brand, but also connect with a lot of people that I probably wouldn't be able to connect with. So yeah.
Yeah. So when you have sort of those kind of milestones within your brand journey, when do you like stop to assess, okay, do I continue doing what I'm doing, or am I pivoting for any, reason? Like, when do you sort of take the moment to sort of realign and re-strategize of like where this brand is going, especially after, recognition in that sense?
Yeah. So I'm not that great at that part, like the strategy behind it, because I feel like, ultimately I was creating just to create art. Like, this was just like an expression, a very fun way for me to like create, but it obviously took off, right? And it happened to me very quickly. And so I have a hard time actually kind of putting a whole bunch of strategy behind it, because then I feel like I'm kind of forcing it, and then it is a business, right? But I'm still a creative, and I have that mindset where I'm like, I'm just here to have fun. I'm here to create. Like, everybody else leave me alone. Like, you can send me a brief, please make it bullet points, and like, that's it. But there are moments, and I think in the creative process, like, I've had moments where I've crashed, or I took some time off and I couldn't create because I just was overwhelmed, because it was just so much feedback. It was so much, can you create this? Can you work with this? Are you working with this brand? It was just overwhelming, right? So I kind of feel like last year was my year to kind of just like, I'm not doing anything extra. Like, I declined a lot of partnerships because I just wasn't in the mental capacity. And I feel like when I lose my why and it becomes like, oh, I'm doing this for money or things like that, then it shifts. That's when I have to take a break and be like, this isn't why I started. This isn't why I became successful. I have to realign and say, okay, how do I get back to my love of art and creativity? And in the same vein, continue to inspire people, because I get those messages often. I get those emails often. And I'm like, this is my why. When people say this changed their life, or they didn't see anything in stores that looked like them, or they didn't see artwork that looked like them, or stationery that looked like them, that's my why. Not the fame, glitz and glory. Like, it's connecting with people and continuing to inspire people through my gifts. So
I love that. And I think that's just as important part of like, you know, this brand strategy is the why. And obviously, you know, like it's been said in so many different variations that you're not ever going to continue doing what you love to do. And if the purpose isn't there, if the drive isn't there, and especially because like you're just I assume it's only you. Yeah. Who's
and my dog Blue.
Yeah. Just as important. I'm like, you know, that you are the face of your brand. And so it's just as important for you to feel connected to it and mentally in it for everything. So I'm curious to know, what have been some of the, you know, we kind of touched about it a little bit, but what have been some of the hardest parts about building and maintaining a personal brand, and what have been some of the most easiest parts of it?
Yeah, I think the hardest parts have been like trial and error, like shipping products. I didn't know, you know, I'm thinking, oh, it's going to cost me $2. I'm shipping like 2 pounds worth of stuff to people and it's like 30. So it's like those hits you take, right? But it's learning, right? I didn't give up. I'm like, okay, next time I got to make sure I charge the appropriate shipping for things, right? Or making the decision to go print on demand because I didn't want to house storage because I didn't have anywhere to store it. My apartment wasn't big enough. I was getting 300 to 400 orders a day. I couldn't house all of these orders. And so making that decision to say, okay, look, I'm going to do print on demand so that when you place an order, it automatically goes into production. I'm just making sure that the systems are connecting, and I keep my hands off of it because at the end of the day, I still have a 9 to 5 and that's my priority. And that's where I also invest a lot of time. So I had to make sure I made that easier for myself. And so I would say that was like a notable hard point for me, was kind of learning that part of the logistics, I guess, of the business. But the easiest part has been be able to create artwork. Like that takes like nothing from me. It's a moment where, especially when I do brand partnerships, it's like they're coming to me because they already like what I create. Now it's just, how do I turn this into what they're asking, right? And that's where it's like, sometimes I blow my mind where I'm like, how did I do that? But it's the same thing here, like where I'll be like, I don't know how I'm doing this, but it's happening. Like, you know, I'm able to create this. So I would say creating the artwork is definitely the easiest, and also connecting with people and just like, I don't know, inspiring them in a way that I didn't think was possible or I could do. So, yeah.
And that's actually, I mean, I can't imagine like to some point, like as a mother, you know, I have a person who looks up to me and who, you know, probably sees me in such a different light than I see myself. And I can imagine, like, especially like you as a creator, you're like, okay, I'm creating and I know who I'm creating for, I know why I'm creating, but it still can be surprising when you do get those words from people of like what this has meant to them. I can only imagine like what that is like, you know, because you feel like you're just like, I'm just creating some art and putting it out there.
Yeah, people buy it, right? But it's like when you get those messages, like when I did my Forever 21 collection, there was some children's wear, and there was like a hoodie that was like an adult, you know, a woman could wear it and a child, and I would get pictures and messages from like moms and daughter duos. Like, my daughter literally like wears her hair like this every single day and has never seen anything like this on artwork or like on clothing. And I'm like, oh, like what? Like, you know, like, and when I was creating it, I didn't think it would have that big of an impact, right? Like, I think to some capacity, yes, but I wasn't thinking like in the impact that it was, or like I feel seen or I feel represented. And I don't even shop at this store. I never did, but like I saw this and needed it. So it's like, it's crazy kind of how you really affect people, and you actually might not even know. I mean, sometimes I get emails from years later, like, and I'm like, well, first off, thanks, like, for taking time out of your day. Like, wow. Like, and it just kind of reinforces, like, I am here for a purpose, right? Like, and it's through my creativity that I can change people's lives and touch them and help them to, you know, feel seen the way that I want to feel seen when I go into places. So,
yeah. And so we mentioned Forever 21. I know you recently, maybe a couple months back, you, designed hats for the Arizona Coyotes. So, you know, a lot of great partnerships. What would you say? I know you're going to say all of them, but what would you say in terms of for yourself as a creator? What has been probably maybe the project you're most happy with, or maybe the one that impacted you the most?
Yeah. I feel like to date, probably my US Open project, because a year prior to working at my previous employer, I was working in tennis, collegiate tennis, and I went to the US Open for the first time. And I made connections with some of the USTA, which is like the, USA Tennis Association, kind of the governing body for it. I, made business connections with these people, and it's kind of a testament to show like it's a lot of who you know too, but it's also what you do, of those connections and those long-term friendships that then when they're in rooms and opportunities come up, they bring your name up. And that's exactly what happened. I had a friend who was like, they're like, oh, we want to do this collaboration with underprivileged communities. We want to give back, but we want to use artwork to highlight it. And they picked, I want to say like 8 to 10 artists, and I was able to create a 1-of-1 piece. It was 8 by 8 foot, and it was on display at the Arthur Ashe Arena, where I sat and watched tennis matches for the first time. And that was like really full circle to me. That was and I was able to give back in a way that I wasn't even sure I could. And honestly, Forever 21 was also one similar, because I worked at Forever 21 for like 3 months when I was in, I think, high school, or maybe like my freshman year of college. So it's like those things have been really full circle to me, because it's like when I was working in these places, I wasn't even in a space of sharing artwork in that way. So that has really like made me be like, I don't think anything's impossible, right? Because I think my artwork has shown me that nothing is impossible.
Ooh, yes. I'm curious to know, obviously you're still, like you said, as you go through this process and building your brand and navigating that, you're still learning and growing. Mm-hmm. But knowing what you know now, what are some key pieces of advice would you give to someone who's probably considering or maybe in the early stages of developing their own personal brand? Yeah,
I think, the why part, obviously, it's strategy, right? As you said, in some capacity. I always look at it like it's not, but I think your why, because if your why is centered around changing your life, changing other people's life, and not like money and what you can gain, I think it allows you to align and stay true to yourself. So when things like social media changes, the algorithm changes, right? We have a whole new platform that we're sharing on. What's your why? Because I don't believe that any of those changes will hinder the progress or success that you can have, because you could get 10 likes on Instagram, right? And still be having different conversion, right? And it's like, I think that's important. So your why, I think, should always be in the forefront of your brand or your business, so that you don't get lost in the sauce and get lost with all these things and what people think and say and do. You just stick to you.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. So as we're looking at where we just started 2023, though it does feel like we've been in it for quite some time. Yeah. But have you thought about what are some goals that you have set for yourself, and even as small as just like, hey, I just want to produce 2 new pieces of work. But what goals have you set for yourself for?
I'm going to disappoint you, because I haven't set any. I have all personal goals. I felt like actually that...
Well, that fits into, I think, like I said, like you need to make sure that you're taken care of in order to feed that side. Yeah.
So my cup was not filled last year. I was filling everyone else's cups. So this year I decided I'm going to fill my own cup. And with that comes stepping out of my comfort zone and the ideas that we all put in our heads about this person's doing that, or this is what we see here, this is what's popular. Because at the end of the day, I'm still human, and I fall into the schemes of, undervaluing myself, or like you said, your ring that you have, like realizing that I'm still worthy. And so I didn't set any business goals per se. Well, a couple of them. I did an ins and outs list. So in 2020, I was like, these are things that are out. When we go into 2023, these are things that are going to be in. And one of them was, not creating something because I think I've seen it already. Because there's really space for all of us. And also, no one's you, no one's me. No one can fill that space in the world, because we are uniquely ourselves, right? And so reminding myself that even though there are a million people that got iPads and Apple Pencils now, they still aren't me. There's still a creative level that I'm bringing to the table that other people are not going to have because it's unique to me. And so that was a huge thing, was realizing stand my ground in my space, and that's just what it is. Focus on me and not what's around me. But yeah, most of my goals were more personal, of just like exploring. I like to buy things when I'm like sad or nervous. I don't know. I'm like a shopper. I'm like swipe. So I'm like, I'm not spending that much, and no McDonald's because I love McDonald's.
And it's so much harder now when everybody has an app that you get points. I'm just like, everything's a game
I'm
for
like,
me.
they're giving me free fries, and I'm like, no, let's go to the gym instead. So yeah, this year is really about like filling my own cup, because then I can pour that into other areas. And in reality, like in the time even before that we got off, luckily, because I don't normally get a long break, you know, for the holidays, I was like on TikTok, like faithfully. Like, I don't even know. I was like, I'm making this really hard for myself because I think everything has to be curated, but it doesn't. And this app has shown me numerous times people are just showing up as themselves. And one day I was like, oh, I created a digital planner. Let me show these people like what I make. And I was like in bed, like my mom's house isn't aesthetically pleasing as like, you know, most people would say. It's like homey, but like, you know, I have like all the white furniture and the white pillows, you know, it's just like clean and whatever. And I was like, I'm just going to do this video. And I was literally laying in my bed, like just woken up. And it's like those videos have taken off. And now I'm building a completely different community than what I have on Instagram around completely different things, but something also that I'm passionate about. And I just like love that, because I was able to not really stick to what I know, but also just kind of be myself and show all of the different areas that I am interested in, all of the different skill sets that I have. And I'm just like, hey, I'm a TikTok girly.
I was like, hey, if you're looking for anyone to mentor, a life coach, I volunteer.
Hey,
I'm just like, I'm loving what I'm hearing. I was like, I need to.
I mean, I don't know that much.
Apply this to my life. So I want to wrap up this conversation. What is a brand or individual that you would like to collaborate with next?
I always say Nike. Nike has always been like very top of my list. I think my athletic side like always like loves. I collect shoes. I collect a lot of things, but shoes for sure are my thing. I would love to do a shoe collab with Nike. And get
We're
like
gonna manifest that.
Yeah, like a Stormy Mae.
I would buy it. So you already know, one sold.
Nike, do you hear that?
And lastly, what was the last thing, and it doesn't necessarily have to be around the brand, but what was the last thing that inspired you?
Inspired me. I would say my friends and family have really been inspiring me in their hard work and the things that they are passionate about. I think we all kind of work in different areas and do completely different things. And just to see them like go after their dreams, and I could depict their lives in artwork any day. And so they inspire me to keep creating. They inspire me to push forward and just like continue to chase after my dreams.
Yeah. And I think that's probably the biggest way that, you know, as much as we're consuming on social and, you know, every other platform that's out there, I think the biggest inspiration is just like what's happening. Yeah. Like what's happening. And
what's
so
in front
that's
of us. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for those that are looking to learn more about you or follow you, where can they find you?
Instagram is _Storm MAE. So Storm Mae, and same on TikTok. And then my website is stormynesbit.com.
Well, definitely check her out. And then if you're ever in Home Goods,
TJ Maxx, Marshalls, and I have some international stores too.
So definitely keep an eye out.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I had such a great time chatting with you and learning more about obviously your brand journey and also where it's going next. So I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. All right. Thanks everyone. And we'll catch you next time.